Welcome to episode 6 of the Eternal Clothing podcast series. I'm going to be speaking with Alex van Dutch, who I met in Berlin at a tattoo convention. Alex has been to just about every tattoo convention in the world, and he's the director of worldtattooevents.com. Alex has made his own podcast series about the history of tattoo events and has hosted some of the legends in tattooing on his shows. So I'm here today to speak with Alex van Dutch. Welcome to the show, Alex van Dutch. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Faith. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for speaking with me. How's things? You're over in Vietnam now?
Yes, been in Vietnam for a little while, and before the pandemic, I got stuck here. And since early last year, I wasn't able to get out of Vietnam anymore. So I've been here for 1.5 years now, full time. And now we're on a total lockdown. So waiting for this one to pass.
Yeah, everyone's grounded and waiting for the conventions to happen again.
Yes, I'm dying for it.
Yeah, it was great meeting you at the Berlin Tattoo Convention. That was a really great one. I love that show. Same
here, actually one of I think the most interesting shows in Europe.
Yeah.
Next year they're gonna celebrate hopefully the 13th edition. Number 30, yeah.
Wow.
It's also one of the I think it's the longest running tattoo show in Berlin, in Europe.
Yeah, 30 years. That's a long time, isn't it? There's been so many sort of eras of tattooing within that 30 years. It's changed so much.
Yes. And it's I think it's interesting to see how tattoo conventions somehow mirrored the evolution of tattooing over the years. It's an interesting field.
Yeah, you've been studying the history of tattoo conventions and making your own podcast series, I've seen.
Yes, so during this pandemic, I had a little bit more time to to work on some projects which have been toying in my mind for the last few years. I always thought it would be a little bit more interesting to see or to get to know more about the organizers of tattoo conventions. A lot of them are always on the background, and you don't really get to see a lot about the people doing those events.
Yeah,
I always thought it wasn't
mystical. Yeah, aren't they almost? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so now I had the time to do it. So I had the opportunity to do some live podcasts and get to know more about, again, like the people behind the conventions and the history of the tattoo conventions, what I've been going through. But I have like a lot of personal questions which I found very interesting about conventions, and why we should do a convention, what motivates you to do a convention, what's the hardest part of doing a convention. I was lucky enough to discuss this with a few very good tattoo convention organizers. Among them, Troy Temple from US, which is, I think, right now the biggest organizer in the world. I think he's the one which organized the most events, I think 23 or 25 now a year. And among them, the Philadelphia Tattoo Show convention, which is the biggest one on the planet with 1,500 tattoo artists at its peak. By the way, that will be, I think, in September again. And then I had a chance to talk to the first one came from the Brussels Tattoo Convention.
Okay.
That was also one of the very first few events which have been as World Tattoo events. So I was glad to get a free pass for this one. For me, that was already like that was a special event. I still remember that pretty well. So I had a chance to talk with Marco Leoni, which organized the first tattoo convention in Italy. That was back in the 80s, I believe, 1989, I believe, the first one. He's one of the historical organizers in Italy. And he actually also organized the really first tattoo convention ever in Brazil. That was also back in the 80s somewhere. I don't know exactly the date. I don't remember. He told me, but I forgot. What else we had? I had BJ from the Nepal Tattoo Convention, one of the, I would say, the most interesting tattoo conventions in Asia as well. He has been around for a decade as well. Well, my last guest was Mickey Vialetto from the London Tattoo Convention.
Yeah.
I was glad he was able to talk to me, because this was just a little while after he announced that he would stop completely with the London Tattoo Convention.
Yeah, that was
for now.
Hard news for him. like the heart of our community in England.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that broke the heart of a lot of people.
Yeah.
I know a lot of artists. They, you know, and being able to join the tattoo convention, the London Tattoo Convention, would have been the very peak of their career, and and now they cannot do that anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is it's a loss for the community. On the other hand, Mickey is one of those guys which really gave so much to the tattoo community, you know, and for the last 30 years. I mean, I remember I grew up reading his magazines in Italy back in the early 90s. You know, I really have even his I think I've all, you know, the first few years, but I think I have like the number 2 or 3 or his really first magazines, you know, which to me are like holy right now, you know, like I should try to preserve them very well.
Yeah, keep them sealed in bags. They'll be
exactly, yeah. That's a real piece of history. I mean, thanks to him, I got to know a lot about tattooing, you know, and the first thing I told him when I could speak to him was like, you know, I'm grateful for everything you did, you know, for the tattoo community, you know, and yeah, big honor to do that, by the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, and now I'm looking for a few more editions for this podcast. It's harder now to find organizers which have that kind of historical impact within the tattoo community, but there is still quite a lot which I would like to do, like 1010 from Paris, Orion Ching from the Taiwan Tattoo Convention. It's one of the most famous artists in Asia.
Yeah.
Yes, these are some of the guys which are still on my list, which I hope one day to be able to do.
Good choices. They're both really respectable artists. Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, you know. So the pretty at the very top, you know, of the industry. So yeah, again, big honor for me to be able to do this.
Wow. So what's it like being able to speak with these living legends in tattooing? Because yeah, the organizers are considered quite mystical, like you wouldn't tend to see them around. They're like, you know, like the big guys in tattooing or something. So like you said, working at the London convention is an honor in itself, and you've managed to sit with these organizers and have these big open conversations. What was it like?
Well, yeah, again, you know, besides being a big, huge honor, it's really, it's interesting for me as a, you know, as a tattoo lover. You know, I'm not a tattoo artist myself, but I've been, you know, really into tattooing since I was, you know, like a teenager or something. And, you know, get to know them, get to know people which I've been seeing in magazines for years, you know, and reading about them and following them for decades. Yeah, for me, it's a very big thing. I mean, I can't really compare to anything else. You know, I wouldn't. It's hard. I mean, if you're really into tattooing and you really get to know somebody that you've been following for decades, it's hard to describe the feeling, honestly. You know, it's somehow between surreal and yeah, again, extremely interesting. I always ask them a lot of personal questions. You know, like. You know, how did you get into tattooing? Where did you get started? You know, why are you in tattooing? And you know, what is it that keeps you going and stuff like that. You know, it's but one thing that I've noticed talking with all of these guys is that most of them also like actually quite approachable and quite easygoing. You know, they don't, you know, even though they have a huge status in the industry, I have to say that they're very helpful even. You know, and this is something which I really appreciate as well.
Yeah, I think if you approach people right, and like you did, you know, showing respect for their commitment to the industry and things like that, then people are more willing to open up. They can tell you right, asking the right questions from the start. I think that's important as well, isn't it? If you want to speak to
exactly, yeah. And I think they also really, I don't know, like maybe somehow they can really feel when somebody's trying to approach them because they only want something from them, or it's because they're generally trying to, you know, tell their story and share it and maybe see it from a different perspective. You know, a lot of the focus is also on the tattoo artists in the tattoo industry. You know, so I think when the focus shifts from a tattoo artist to an organizer, for example, I think it's also nice for them. It's a kind of recognition for the kind of work they do, which is very hard, by the way. You know, I think organizing a convention it's a very hard job. You know, it's easy to complain, you know, but you know, sometimes when I have some artists which I hear about complaining about some conventions, and I always ask them, like, what would you do in that place? You know, how would you do it better? I mean, it's easy to complain, but you know, what exactly would you do to do it better? You know, then it's very hard to get a straight answer on that.
Yeah.
You know, for example, I'm very much always on the side of the organizers, maybe because that's what I do for a living, so I'm a little bit biased, you know, but yeah. I think it's important to recognize what I do in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's great to, you know, give them the praise that they deserve, because putting on the conventions is really hard work. Yeah. And if you hear people complaining, it's like, well, how would you please everyone? It's one of those.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, like, yeah, you can always quote Steve Jobs, you know, you could make some of the people happy some of the time, but you cannot make everyone happy all of the time, right? I think that really applies to tattoo conventions a lot.
Yeah, and artists are very personal about their work as well. It's quite an experience, you know, working conventions for people. I think one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is, like, what, in your opinion, what is the importance of tattoo conventions, you know, on a personal level for the spectators? What's the importance of these events? And for the artists as well, like we were saying, London Convention is like part of the community in England, but you've been to the conventions all over the world. And I was wondering, what would you say the position and importance of conventions are?
Well, for the general public, for the visitors, I mean, the most important aspect is that probably they're able to first to enjoy, you know, the tattoo culture in the best possible way. I mean, tattoo convention is the only place where you have, you know, like tattoo artists, performers, I don't know, merchandising, you know, anything that it's around tattooing, it's there at the same time, you know, some conventions more than others. So, you know, personally for me, this was also the way it was. I mean, you know, like I started to go to tattoo conventions when, actually when I was still a student, and when I had a regular job in IT. So for me, going to convention was the only place where I could really enjoy what I really loved. I didn't have anyone in my social circle, let alone at work or stuff like that was really into tattooing. You know, they all thought there was something a little bit, you know, weird, or for, you know, anyhow, not normal stuff. So yeah, I was happy to be my own element. You know, so this is how I got to know a lot of people, and you know, just try to learn more about tattooing. If you're really into it, yeah, that's another aspect. Like tattoo conventions, even for people which are really interested in tattooing, it's just a great way to learn more about tattooing, about different styles, a bit about, you know, about the history of tattooing, about anything that surrounds this really, really rich culture. You know, for the artist, it's even more on that way. I mean, you know, I think for them it's, you know, like a lot of artists will give you like different answers on why they would join conventions. You know, some of them, they would join conventions just because they want to see different places, or some of them because just they want to work more and make more money. Some others, they really, you know, like some others, they would just maybe go to get noticed by other people from different countries or different cultures, you know, and build a name for themselves in a different region of the world. You know, that could play a big element. And, you know, obviously like to learn as well. I mean, if you're a tattoo artist, and if you are like a pretty smart tattoo artist, you should always keep learning. I mean, you know, and I think a huge convention is a huge opportunity to learn from the best very often. You know, just observe what's happening, you know, around you, or again, like in different countries, or in a different city than yours. You know, be open. You know, but in general, I would say that most artists that go to conventions, they have this kind of attitude of being open. You know, towards the rest of the tattoo community. I know a lot of artists who don't like to go to tattoo conventions for whatever reason, and that's okay. I mean, you know, if they're happy what they're doing and they want to be by themselves, it's also good. I mean, it's probably not even for everyone. I mean, there's a big social aspect that you have to like. I mean, if you don't like socializing with people, it's probably hard to go to tattoo conventions.
Yeah.
You know, So, but yeah, I mean, like there are some people who don't really like to speak to everyone or to anyone. It's yeah, then it's something that's probably not for them. But again, like for artists, I think it's a huge opportunity to grow as an artist. To make a very long story short.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely noticed that because you get so much diversity in one room, like cream of the crop tattooists from all around the world, and they're really trying to push barriers or do the most, contemporary work they can, or get a big, impact piece done for the day so everyone can see start to finish.
Exactly.
So it's a great environment for people to partake in these activities, definitely.
Yeah, the contest play a huge role, like I've been asking to some tattoo artists, like, do you produce like better work at conventions or at studios? Like most of the artists, they will tell you like, well, at studios, it's easier at your own place because everything is exactly the way you want it. But at the convention, you have this competitive edge.
Yeah.
If you're competing at content stuff like that, that may give you the extra kick to,
yeah,
to push even further, so that would compensate your lack of comfort that you may have in your studio. So I think it's a hard question for a lot of artists, but yeah, I've seen artists doing some absolutely incredible work at conventions, so yeah, I also think like for some of them actually may work best, if they have this kind of competitive nature.
Exactly. A bit of pressure can be quite good for producing, your best artwork, being aware that thousands of people are kind of looking over your shoulder whilst you're working. Yeah, it does give you a push.
And if you are famous, you probably have even more pressure. Because everyone is looking at you. A lot of people are there because you're there, as an artist. So yeah. It must be quite it must put quite some pressure on you as an artist.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's more tiring tattooing at conventions. I noticed by the end of the day, I'm like quite wiped out, but I think it's just so much, extra data your brain takes in whilst you're working in these environments, all the different conversations, people walking past and things like that. It's a bit more to keep up with, I guess. So yeah, all the excitement of being around all your friends and everyone, it's like it's always a big weekend for people, on both sides.
It is overwhelming, and it's starting as well, but yeah, as you say, like it's you also have this adrenaline thing that it just keep you going. It's at least that I again, like I don't tattoo a tattoo artist, I just chat with people or make photos, or sometimes I judge and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm wiped out after 3 days. I'm trashed. Like the last thing I want to do after a convention, like on a Monday, is like talk to other people again. Like I need a break as well,
Yeah, those Mondays after convention, they're definitely one where you need to relax.
I switch off my phone.
Oh wow, so you must have had some really diverse experiences whilst working all around the world and participating in these conventions. I was wondering if you can share some stories about the different diverse experiences you've had.
Well, yeah, I mean, every convention has its own it's a new experience inside and outside the convention. For me, the experience is more towards like meeting some of the tattoo artists which I've been looking up to, some of the older legends, a convention is probably the best possible way to get to do this as well. Throughout my my travels, I've been, meeting people like Jack Rudy, which I've been following for decades as well. In Tokyo, I've been able to meet Horiyoshi in a very small tattoo convention. It's called the King of Tattoo, which, by the way, now they're redoing it again this year. Yeah, it was banned, like tattooing was made illegal a few years back, and now it's legal again, so they can do the tattoo conventions again. But because of COVID, it's gonna be again like a very small event. But again, they're gonna do it. So I met Shanghai Kate as well in Holland at the female tattoo convention in Holland, and I had quite a good chat with her as well. And very, very extremely interesting woman, and there is Orion Ching, which I met as well again, like one of the biggest artists in Asia. Shige, which I think everyone loves his work, but again, being able to just speak a few words with him, it's big honor also because extremely shy normally. So just the ability to break through is like, that was awesome. Very, again, like tattoo artists, which I've been looking up to, for me is a big component. And the experience you have together with those artists, like at different places, I mentioned to you, I was in Israel, for example, for the Israel Tattoo Convention, which for me is also like another very exotic convention because, you would not really expect a convention to take place in such a somehow difficult place like Israel, like in Tel Aviv. And when I was there, I went together with my friend Matt Gunn, the Checked Man, and with him we went to get tattooed at the oldest tattoo studio in the world, which is in Jerusalem. Yeah. So we went to get tattooed together there, and that for me, I think I showed you that at the time, but I don't know if I can redo it again.
That's so cool. So
it's this little mark here.
Yeah, how did they make the stencil? Was it a piece of carved wood or something?
So those are like ancient wooden stencils, basically. They've been marking people for centuries with those wooden stencils, basically. And initially, this family, which were the grandfathers of this tattoo studio, which is now at the 27th generation, the Razzouk family, they were basically marking the people during the Crusades, and it was basically to mark Christians or Islamic people so that they wouldn't know where to bury them once they will die. And this is how they started tattooing them. So the same guy who would tattoo them, it was to bury them. Wow. And eventually, if they would die, this is how they got started, according to the story. That thing then just kept going, and then throughout the centuries, they became famous in the world of tattooing. When tattooing was eventually not that famous, but a lot of people would just go there to get this kind of, I would call it now like a souvenir tattoo, But they have this collection of these ancient stencils, again used for centuries, and I think it's an extremely cool thing. Now then again, like it's an experience which I could share with Matt and with Mary Jane, which owns Dermasource, and she's one of the biggest tattoo historians in US. She was the last apprentice of Bert Grimm. So and she was probably the really first female artist in the field of medical tattooing. She was the one which started reconstructing nipples, tattooing lips and that kind of stuff, but like from a medical perspective. And so, she's a piece of history itself. Like for me, she got tattooed as well on that day, and her husband. So for me, the opportunity to share this experience with them, that was awesome. One of my really best memories, actually.
That's so
in
cool.
The field of that was really special. That was really, really cool.
Yeah, that's a really unique experience to have been tattooed at the oldest tattoo shop in the planet. And I
on a planet.
Surprised that it's in Israel and that they used to tattoo both faiths as well. Who would have known?
Yeah, sorry.
That they used to tattoo both faiths to keep them separate in the burials, the Christians and the Muslims.
Yes. I was surprised about that, but this is apparently how they really got started.
Yeah.
So it's and which also like the real modern tattooing, I mean, it's only like let's say 150 years old, like since the invention of the coil machine. But so I didn't even really know that somehow tattooing was still that common like 700 years ago. That blew my mind.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know how many people even know that, but yeah, that's the way. Apparently, that's the way it is. Obviously, it goes back a lot older than that, but you know what I mean. It's thousands of years. So you probably knew an exact date of when the first remains of tattooed people have been found.
Well, there's been loads of different remains found, because you've got like the Siberian ice princess with like her skin that was preserved shows figures of different animals and things like that. It's one of the clearest preserved pieces of skin. But the thing is, around the world, there's different acidity levels in soil. So like in Japan, there's no evidence of the earlier tattooing because of the acidity in the soil, I've been told. So what they have to base their previous knowledge of tattooing on is like clay figures that showed all the markings on the body, and this is how they knew which patterns they were using. And then you have the Moai stone heads of Easter Island. I heard that they had tattooed back pieces, so I flew there to find out for myself. And I went through archaeological archives from 1915 from an archaeologist called Catherine Routledge. She was a British suffragette, and she built her own boat named Manor and sailed there in 1915 with her own crew, and lived with everyone on the island, learnt the language, even lived in caves with cannibals, just everyone's friend, and kept really precise notes. And her work is still known as some of the best archaeology records in all of Polynesia. But I went there to see the markings that I'd found in her documents. And the stone heads are not just heads, they're like full bodies buried up to their necks. And they have tattooed backs, tattooed butts, tattooed throats. One even has a ship carved into the chest, like all kinds of markings. Yeah. So, you know, there's evidence like this that still needs to be looked into, because the markings of the Moai can tell you who made them. And speaking with the last original bloodline tattooist there, Mo Kamai, I asked him what the tattoo markings mean and what they are. And he said that the word Moai is not even the correct translation from, you know, from what this means. He said that the correct translation means like the face of the ancient people. It's something like a Ringaroa Te Tapuna. So it's actually like a portrait of the original chiefs on the island. So the tattoos are the ones they wore, and they would signify that they're Polynesian origin, these people. So the blood's Polynesian, but now we have a Chilean government there. So the original settlers of Rapa Nui, Easter Island, were tattooed Polynesians.
You should give lectures about about Polynesian tattooing or Southeast Asian tattooing or Asia Pacific tattooing.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to. I was asked to lecture for the New York Folk Art Society. That was rescheduled from 2020 because of the pandemic. Oh wow! It's been rescheduled again. Hopefully next year we'll be able to get my exhibitions done in New York, and I'll be lecturing with the New York Folk Art Society, which is really exciting.
That would be awesome. Do you have like a lot of material that you could, for example, exhibit at tattoo conventions?
Yes, exactly. I've been writing a book about tattoo history, and I'm releasing that this year. So I have a meeting with my publishing agent next month. So that's cool. And I've been making like an exhibition to show tattooed tribal people and, you know, the Moai and things like that, everything I've documented. Yeah.
That'd be awesome. I hope you could come to my conventions then.
I would love to. Yeah,
next year.
More about your convention. What's your plan?
Yeah, so we're organizing for the first time ever. I never wanted to be involved in two conventions, but you know, like I've been toying with this idea with a couple of friends for a while, and we thought, okay, it may be a good idea to do it together. You know, it's so we made a new organization called Impact Events, and the first two events are gonna be next year in Belgium and in Holland. Okay. September in Belgium, 17-18 September, the Hasselt Tattoo Convention, and in Utrecht on the 29th and 30th of October, we do the Utrecht Tattoo Convention. Utrecht is one of the major cities in Holland, about 50 kilometers from Amsterdam. And then in 2023, I would like to make a convention in the city where I live in Vietnam, Da Nang, which is a beautiful city on the beach. It's and it's just an awesome spot. I mean, so I hope to make one here once things will get back to normal. So, and then, you know, eventually we're looking long term, you know, to maybe organize even more conventions. You know, the other two guys I'm working with, it's Andy from the Brussels Tattoo Convention, the Rotterdam Tattoo Convention, and Kim from the Brussels Tattoo Convention. And yeah, they've been around for over a decade each, organizing conventions, and yeah, they're both very, very solid organizers. So we thought to join forces and bring to the market some new conventions with a lot of the old school elements, you know, but we also want to try to bring some new features. I mean, you know, like something that could be even more interesting and engaging for both the public and the artist.
Yeah.
So we have a few plans in mind, and yeah, we will try to make them reality. Again, the first two conventions will be, I think, fairly experimental.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see what that will lead. I mean, I'm very excited about that because I never wanted to be involved into conventions, but in the last few years I've been collaborating with some of them as well. And at a certain point, I thought, well, why not doing our own thing, So yeah, it's, I think it's a natural evolution as well. I mean, I gained quite a lot of experience in the last few years, so I thought, yeah, maybe we could just put it for a good use,
Yeah, congratulations.
So, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know anyone
So,
more experienced with attending conventions and having these kind of conversations with organizers. So I'm sure you've, got a really great understanding of how to make this event work. I'd love to attend.
Yes, I mean, like I have very clear in my mind that, like a convention, it's a combination of a lot of moving parts, and there is so many things that you need to take care of. I heard complaints about everything you can possibly imagine about the conventions.
Yeah.
And you obviously, you can't obviously again like make the perfect tattoo convention. Maybe London was somehow close to perfection. But then again, I think there's still room to offer a very good experience to both visitors and the artists and to everyone else involved into those conventions. So yeah, that's the challenge we're taking on.
That's so cool. Oh, amazing. Yeah, keep me posted. Yeah, I'd love to attend. So
I definitely will. I would definitely love to have you there, to exhibit your book or anything you have about your researches. I think that would be really, really awesome. I mean, I really believe that the educational aspect within tattoo conventions should be somehow standard. It's a lot of conventions give a lot of space to it. Yeah, we will definitely be some of them as well.
yeah.
Anything that can help more people to understand more about tattooing, it's going to be more beneficial to everyone. So yeah, this is why.
That's so cool. Yeah, it's so important to document things as well, as it's been like a booming industry. Obviously, it's very fashionable now. And so much has changed with that. Like you say, in the past 30 years of witnessing conventions, so much has changed so quick, obviously, with the technology and social acceptance. And we've got different timelines like this around the world. Obviously, it's still been made illegal in Japan until 2 years ago and things like that.
Yes,
but
exactly.
Yeah. Like really document what's going on as well, because obviously it being an industry that's just like boomed and become very fashionable, things are just changing so rapidly. So it's great to keep hold of some of the traditions in tattooing and honor those and honor the people who have got it to where it is now. I think that's great foundations, and then all of the great elements that are developing from all this wonderful new equipment we have. It's great to be able to show what tattooing is becoming now as well. Yeah,
and I think it's also important to remind also to the new generations, whether it's tattoo artists or just people which are interested in tattooing, that they're dealing with something which is probably a lot older than what a lot of people think. I think a lot of people have the idea that tattooing it's really something that it's from the last 20, 30 years, just because now it's so popular. But yeah, it goes a lot deeper than that. It's a lot older than that, and it has so many different meanings in different cultures. So yeah, I think there is so much to learn about this culture that yeah, again, I think presenting this at convention, these elements, it's one of the best possible things that we could possibly do.
So I've watched your podcast series with Mickey, the organizer from the London convention and things like that. I was wondering where I can find your work and where we can share that online.
Okay, so on the World Tattoo Events website, there's one of the links on the menu. It's called History. And this is where you can find all the podcasts we have made. All the podcasts, by the way, are in collaborations with the Reinventing the Tattoo Network, with by Guy Atkinson and Gabe Ripley. So all the material is actually mainly on the network. And like any tattoo artist can register and search for the podcast. But by the way, they also have like a huge inventory of anything educational about tattooing.
Okay.
So courses of any kind, from drawing to executing tattoos. By the way, really worth to check it out. And so this is where you can basically see it. And then obviously everything is on YouTube as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we share them everywhere we can.
Yeah, that's great. I really enjoyed the one with Mickey, so I'll work my way through the series, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the episode that was about the future of tattoo conventions. I believe you spoke with a lot of organizers about what would happen post-pandemic, and I think that's a topic, a question everyone wanted to ask, so well done for collaborating that one.
Thank you. Yeah, this was actually in the early days of the pandemic. I think it was made in May 2020, so we were in only 3 months or something, but like we already had 3 months that all tattoo convention had stopped in the world. They stopped in March. After the 15th of March, we didn't have any more conventions anywhere in the world. And by May, everybody was wondering what was about to happen,
Yeah.
So we decided to do this podcast with a few very good convention organizers. And I think that was an interesting conversation. I think the only thing is that probably none of us expected that as per today, conventions are still, they're coming back, but they're still struggling to be what they used to be before the pandemic. Although we're getting there in many countries, I'm very happy about that. I think September this year we'll have over 50 tattoo conventions taking place, which is very close to what it was before the pandemic.
Yeah, it's good seeing things starting again and people being able to connect again as well. Everyone's been stuck in their home countries and places like that, so it'd be great to have all those face-to-face conversations again and feel that inspiration from being that sort of collective and community. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to it as well.
Oh, cool.
I've been the only event where actually I've been to one early this year, like on the 2nd of January this year. There was a tattoo contest in Saigon, and so I was able to go there for a couple of days and be in my element again. But it wasn't really a convention; it was just a contest. There wasn't any live tattooing. Sorry. But that was fun. It was about 140 Vietnamese tattoo artists, competing for the best pieces. I was one of the judges, and I was probably the only. There were, I think, three or four foreign people like in the whole convention, because almost everyone else has left the country. So I was one of the very few still around.
Yeah, there's a lot happening in America now. Things have restarted there quite well, haven't they? I think they have the benefit of being able to drive state to state. If one shuts, they can go make tattoos.
Yeah, you go to the next one. Yeah. In America, what I see is some states are still opening, then close down again. But then again, as you say, like the convention would just move to the next state, and or at least there will be another convention in the next state, and things just keep going. But right now, it's probably the country which is in the best shape in terms of conventions, despite despite the situation. Yeah, despite the situation, it's not really perfect yet.
Yeah.
But I think everybody tries to deal with the situation for what it is.
Yeah,
definitely. So
No, well, yeah, I just can't wait. It'll be great to meet at your convention perhaps next year. I'd really enjoy.
I really hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
We'll be doing the Brighton Tattoo Convention here in February as well. Have you been to that one?
Ah, nice, lucky you. Not yet. No, Brighton is one I miss. It's a very famous convention, and I promised myself to go for ages, and never happened though. Hopefully, hopefully, I don't know. I don't think next year, but maybe the year after, maybe 2023.
That sounds great. Yeah, we'll be here in the year after, so you're welcome to come and visit the studio. If you come to Brighton, it'd be great to host you.
I would love to do so.
Yeah, nice one. Oh, thank you so much for taking the time today to answer my questions. And yeah, I just look forward to getting on the road, coming out to some conventions again.
Yeah, me too. You're most welcome, Faith. Great talking to you. And yeah, again, hopefully we'll see you somewhere very soon.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for your great work with documenting the history of tattoo conventions.
Thank you. Yeah, I just hope I can keep going as much as I possibly as I like.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, cool. Well, have a great day. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.